Scientists and their efforts. NCERT +1 and +2. All the scientists of both +1 and +2. Let's start. Proposed two kingdom classification. Aristotle proposed five kingdom classification. Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia. Scientist R.H. Whittaker. R.H. Whittaker. Recognized certain microbes as casual agent of tobacco mosaic virus. Dmitry Ivanovsky, 1892, demonstrated that infected plant extract can cause disease in healthy plants called fluid Contagium vivum fluidum. M.W. Bejernik. M.W. Bejernik. Viruses could be crystallized and crystals are largely of proteins. W.M. Stanley. W.M. Stanley, 1935. Discovered viroids. Discovered viroids. T.O. Diner. T.O. Diner, 1971. Artificial classification system and Systema Naturae artificial classification system, Systema Naturae book, and binomial nomenclature. The scientist Linnaeus, Carolus von Linnaeus. Natural system of classification. Natural system of classification, George Bentham and J.D. Hooker. George Bentham and J.D. Hooker. Darwin of the 20th century. Darwin of the 20th century, Ernst Mayr. Ramachandran Flat for studying the conformation of protein. G.N. Ramachandran. First saw and described live cells. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. Discovered nucleus. Discovered nucleus. Robert Brown. Robert Brown in 1831. Stained the nucleus material with basic dyes and gave the name chromatin. Fleming. German botanist studied various plant cells. German botanist studied various plant cells. Matthias Sleeden. British zoologists studied various animal cells and proposed the presence of outer layer, plasma membrane. British zoologist, that is Theodore Schwann, explained that cells divide and new cells are formed from pre-existing cells. Omnis cellula e cellula. Rudolf Virchow in 1855. First observed Golgi bodies. Camillo Golgi in 1898. First observed ribosomes under electron microscope. George Pallade. George Pallade in 1953. German botanist demonstrated that plants can be grown to maturity in a defined nutrient solution in complete absence of soil. Hydroponics. We can say German botanists demonstrated that the plants can be grown to maturity in a defined nutrient solution in complete absence of soil. Hydroponics, that is Julius Van Sack. Julius Van Sack, 1860. Discovered oxygen and by his experiment revealed the essential role of air in growth of green plants. That bell jar experiment, 1733 to 1804, Joseph Priestley, 1770, provided evidence of production of glucose when plants grow. Provided evidence of glucose production of glucose when plants grow. Julius Van Sack, 1854. Julius Van Sack. Described the first action spectrum of photosynthesis and importance of blue and red light in photosynthesis. Describe the of first action spectrum of photosynthesis and importance of blue and red light in photosynthesis, 1730 to 1799. T.W. Engelmann. Demonstrated that in photosynthesis, hydrogen from a suitable example compound reduces carbon dioxide to carbohydrate, 1897 to 1985. Cornelius Van Niel. Cornelius Van Niel. Calvin cycle in C3 plants. First product is 3-phosphoglyceric acid. Melvin Calvin demonstrated this particular feature. C4 pathway. C4 pathway is Hatch and Slack. C4 pathway, Hatch and Slack. Proposed law of limiting factor. Blackman in 1905. Proposed scheme of glycolysis. Proposed scheme of glycolysis. G. Embden and Otto Meyerhoff and J. Parnas. Discovered auxin while working on phototropism of canary grass. Charles Darwin and Francis Darwin. Discovered auxin while working on phototropism of canary grass. Auxin from coleoptils of oats seedlings. F.W. Went isolated. Observed that the sterile filtrates of fungus Gibberella fujikuri caused disease symptoms in rice seedlings. E. Kurosawa in 1926. Showed that internode segments of tobacco stems, the callus differentiated only when supplied with auxin plus extracts like yeast extract or coconut milk. F. Skoog and co-workers identified and crystallized the cytokinesis promoting substances which was named kinetin. Miller et al. 1955. Miller and others in 1955. Confirmed release of volatile substance from ripened oranges that hastened the ripening of stored unripened bananas. H. Cousins, 1910. British geneticists developed Punnett square. Reginald C. Punnett worked on pea plant and gives laws of inheritance. Gregor Johann Mendel. Rediscovered Mendel's result. Rediscovered Mendel's result. Hugo de Vries, Karel Karens, and Eric von Schermark. Chromosomal theory of inheritance. Sutton and Boveri. Experimental verification of chromosome theory of inheritance. T.H. Morgan. Student of Morgan used frequency of recombination between gene pairs and same chromosome as a measure of the distance between genes and mapped their position on chromosome. Alfred Stewart Went. Alfred Stewart Went. Traced a specific nuclear structure although the spermatogenesis in a few insects and observed that 50% of sperms received this structure. Henking. Well, X body. Henking discovered. Down syndrome was first discovered in 1981. Langdon Down identified DNA as an acidic material present in nucleus and it is called nuclein. Frederick Meischer. X-ray diffraction data for DNA structure. Maris Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin. Franklin gave X-ray diffraction data for DNA structure. Gave double helix model for the structure of DNA. James Watson and Francis Crick. James Watson and Francis Crick. Proposed central dogma. Francis Crick. Proposition that purines and purines are equal to the pyrimidines, like adenine equal to thymine and guanine equal to cytosine, A plus G by T plus E equal to 1, is the rule of Chargaff. Erwin Chargaff gave this principle. Experiment of transforming principle. Transformation principle is by Frederick Griffith. Biochemical characterization of transformation principle. Biochemical is by Oswald Avery, Colin MacLeod, and Macklin McCarthy. Oswald Avery, O.T. Avery, MacLeod, and McCarthy explained the biochemical characterization of the transforming principle. Hershey and Chase unequivocally proved that DNA is the genetic material. E. coli and bacteriophage is explained by Hershey and Chase. Physicists suggested that in order to code for all 20 amino acids, the code should be made up of 3 nucleotides. George Gamow. Codon is triplet. George Gamow. Synthesized RNA molecules with defined combinations of bases, homopolymers and copolymers. Hargobind Khorana. Provided cell-free system for protein synthesis. Marshall Nirenberg. discovered the polynucleotide phosphorylase enzyme helped in polymerizing RNA in a template-independent manner in cell-free system. Severo Ochoa worked on Vicia faba using radioactive thymidine and proved semi-conservative nature of DNA replication. Taylor and colleagues elucidated Francis uh, Jacob and Monod. Francis Jacob and J. Monod. Francis Jacob is a geneticist, whereas Jacob Monod is a biochemist. Developed methods for determination of amino acid sequence in protein and also method for DNA sequencing. Frederick Sanger started DNA sequencing in India at CCMB, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology. Dr. Lalji Singh. Technique of DNA fingerprinting. Technique of DNA fingerprinting. Alec J. Jeffrey. American scientist. Created conditions similar to primitive Earth. Created electric discharge in a closed flask containing methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen at 800 degrees centigrade. Got amino acid as a result. Got amino acid as a result. Stanley Miller. Scientist Stanley Miller. Proposed chemical evolution. First form of life could have came from pre-existing non-living organic molecules. Scientists who proposed this chemical evolution theory, Oparin from Russia and Haldane from England. Life came from pre-existing life. Louis Pasteur gave the theory of survival of the fittest and natural selection. Charles Darwin, naturalist, studied Malaya archipelago and supported the theory of natural selection. Sir Alfred Russel Wallace, embryological support for evolution, observed certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that were absent in adult. Ernst Haeckel, adult never pass through adult stages of other animals. Carl van Baer, embryological evidence, adult never pass through adult stages of other animal. They resemble only larval stages of ancestors, said by Carl van Baer. Worked on population studies. Thomas Malthus, Malthusian population theory. Worked on evening primrose and brought forth the idea of mutation. Hugo de Vries, Enothera lamarckiana, evening primrose, gave the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium principle, which says that allelic frequencies in a population are stable and constant from generation to generation, gene pool, and their alleles in a population remain constant, like p plus q equal to 1 and p square plus q square plus 2pq equal to 1. The theory proposed by Hardy and Weinberg. Developed semi-dwarf wheat at International Center for Wheat and Maize. Dr. Norman Borlaug. Father of White Revolution in India. Father of White Revolution, Verghese Kurian. Discovered penicillin. Discovered penicillin, Alexander Fleming. The full potential of penicillin as an antibiotic. Discovered penicillin as a full potential as an antibiotic. That industrial production we can see it is done by Ernst Chain and Flore. Constructed the first recombinant DNA in 1972. Constructed first recombinant DNA in 1972. Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer. Got Nobel Prize for discovery of restriction enzyme. Nathan Arbor and Smith demonstrated the PCR process, polymerase chain reaction process. Carey Mullis gave Allen's rule, which states that the people from colder region have smaller ears and legs to reduce heat loss. Allen itself. Gave Gauss competitive exclusion principle, which states that no two closely related species competing, no two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot exist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually, explained by Gauss. Gauss principle, we can say. Supported coexistence principle for closely related species competing for similar resources. 5 species of warbler on a tree. We call it as resource partitioning. We say resource partitioning, and explained by Mac Arthur. Mac Arthur explained in Warblers. Robert Constanja put price tags on Nature's Life Support Series. Robert Constanja put price tags on Nature's and Life Support Services. Worked on competitive release on field experiment. Worked on competitive release in field experiment with barnacle. That presence of large barnacles reduce the number of small barnacles. Scientist Carnell placed global species diversity at about 7 million. Robert May placed global species diversity at about 7 million. Sociobiologist who popularized the term biodiversity, Edward Wilson. Father of Green Revolution in India, M.S. Swaminathan. Gave law of area species relationship, Alexander von Humboldt. Showed from his experiment that increased diversity to higher productivity. Showed from his experiment that increased diversity to higher productivity. David Tillman, flat hypothesis, we can see. Tillman flats. Ecologists from Stanford give Rivet Popper hypothesis ecosystem as compared to an aeroplane and explained extinction of species with the help of aeroplane, that is Paul Ehrlich. German geologist coined and defined the term ecology, Ernst Haeckel. 10% energy transfer law, Lindman. 10% energy transfer law, Lindman. First used the term ecology. First used the term ecology, writer. Father of modern ecology. Father of modern ecology, Odom. Father of ecology in India, Ramdev Mishra. That's it. These are all the scientists and their efforts in extracted from NCERT +1 and +2. Thank you.